It's the Five Stones Radio Show with your hosts, Raymond the Real Estate Monkey Modulin and Colin Hedegaard. Sit back, relax, try to survive. Here comes the Five Stones Radio Show.
So we're talking about the 3 points. The first one is clarity only comes after.
Well, the person I watched present this suggested that 100% clarity only comes after you start and sell. I got the impression she was trying to say, you're not going to be 100% prepared. You just need to start selling and doing stuff, and then the clarity will come after you start to make sales. But your point is you do need to have a focus, and you do need to have a clarity. So you do need to have 100% focus on the
So
problem.
maybe the key word that I missed in there is 100%. Maybe you've got 90% clarity, so you started, and then as you work down the path, you get 100% clear on what needs to be done for the business. That I could probably get on board with, because I know I'm starting a new business now, which we've talked to about in previous YouTubes, which you can go back and get all of the other podcasts by looking at youtube.com/fivestonesmortgage and talk and listen and hear that. But yeah, there have been a couple different things that I got involved with and figured out, now I need to deal with a domain broker to buy a domain that is currently being squatted upon by some other son of a bitch. But
Well, I think
I'm not
what she's driving at is you're never going to know what you don't know. So you have to get started for it to start to reveal things and the proper way of doing things. But it doesn't mean that you can't be prepared and shouldn't be prepared and have a pretty good idea of what you're doing before you start.
And that's what I'm saying. Maybe the word 100% clarity is is the key term.
And I think that drives the third point is wasting time on things that don't generate clients. I see LOs all the time that spend months preparing their marketing and preparing their videos and preparing to do stuff, and they don't do stuff.
Don't feel like the Lone Ranger.
I'm
Because that is probably common in every sales job there is. People think they go in and spend 8 hours a day, and then when you nail them down about how many phone calls did you make or how many people did you talk to, and they'll say, 3 or 4. So you work 20 minutes. The other 7.5 hours you went to lunch, you stood at the water cooler and talked to your buddy about the football game. You rearrange the papers on your desk, you put your CRM in alphabetical order, all the shit that doesn't generate income.
Busy work is not work.
Yes. But I think new people think it is work.
Well, once you get some clients, then you have to do some of that crap. But until you have some clients, there's no reason.
But when you get the clients, you realize what of that crap is actually important. When there's 90% of it just doesn't matter unless you focus on the 10% that does because you have clients.
Yeah.
Hardest part of the job is getting people to the front door to apply or do business with you.
Well, there's a saying I use in the real estate brokerage. It's not mine. I wish I'd have been smart enough to think of this. But it says that what's the sole purpose of every business? The sole purpose of every business,
make money,
generate clients. I remember when I was in the engineering world, we used to laugh at the sales team. And now that I'm quote unquote on the sales team, you laugh at them because you want to say, dude, if there were no buyers, you would have nothing to produce. You could produce the best widget in the world. If you didn't have a salesman to sell it to somebody, it doesn't matter. Yep. So now I look at it from a different thing. So I forget who said it, but the number one point of every business is to generate clients. That's it.
I worked for banks for a long time, and I felt like all the operational departments were the anti-sales departments.
Yes.
Like they're all, trying to find ways to stop loans from closing and stop transactions.
Well,
And keep you out of trouble, which to maintain the future of the business, some of that is necessary, but without the sales, there's no salary for anybody.
well, yeah. The other day, I walked into a bank, and I say the other day, it's probably been 5 or 6 months ago. There was one teller working the window with 3 guys in line, and there were 5 people in the offices doing stuff. And I literally thought about that. If every one of me took my money out of your bank, none of those 5 guys would be doing anything. You better get somebody on the front line to take my money. Otherwise, I'll go to a different bank.
Yep.
So it is a whole different mindset that the banks have one person, quote unquote, generating income and 5 ancillary people helping them. That really means nothing if nobody walked into that bank and put money in it.
Yeah. There's a second point on this is about the wrong business model, which we talk about a lot, which is specifically when do you change your business model might be a better
Yeah.
question to discuss. You know, is how do you?
I think that's a question in the back of every entrepreneur's mind. Is it time to pivot? Especially when you first start. I mean, like, the school has been around 18 years. We are not going to pivot what we do because we have found the system that works for us. It generates income. It works. It provides a service to licensed agents.
Yep.
So we would never pivot that one per se. But like when you start a real estate brokerage, you know, and you want that big office with 30 parking spots and a receptionist and 17 phone lines and the bullpen. Remember the bullpen? And then all of a sudden you can't fill that. At what point do you keep driving forward? And there's a lot of podcasts that talk about, you know, you got to grind it every day and it's going to take a while. And, you know, in 10 months you'll be great. How do you know when to go, oh, this business model's not working, let's pivot it to something new?
That one has been a slow burn over 15 years, though, where they've drifted away from that
Yeah.
to more of a.
Well, we run the real estate
Yeah.
brokerage in what I would call the new business model. The one I just described is the old business model, and now it is more of the new, where it's a smaller office. My agents don't come into the office. The services that we provide aren't there. You know, we don't need the big copier that you had in your hallway 20 years ago because now everything's digital, so you send emails out. They don't need phone lines. Everybody's got their own cell phone. You know, clients don't come to the office to look at listings. They see them on the internet. Okay, we've got another break.
And we'll be back after this
with a
break.
commercial break.
And we're back from our
about
second commercial break.
Come back from second commercial. That's the problem. I mean, when you're a busy guy, all we need now is your phone to ring.
Oh, it did while yours did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so 3 phone calls.
Do you feel the feeling that the pivot has to happen? I mean, I'm trying to think to myself. You kind of suspect it, and you just have to kind of follow your instinct. I think.
Figuring out that pivot is the same as figuring out whether that person is right for your business. It is the same exact thing.
I
Most
thought
of
you
the
were gonna
time,
say figuring out when your wife was
no.
mad.
If we could figure that out, well, we already figured that out. We just know
It's easy
how to
tell
move
when
on.
she's mad. Why
Yeah.
is the question.
Well,
Yours tells you she's mad? Because mine doesn't talk
remind
to
me next time I'm going to bring the shovel so we can all dig
Well,
holes.
they have a way of telling you without saying anything.
Are these your underwear on the floor? They better be, because if they're not, I've got a question for you.
Anyhow, I think pivoting in business is the same as knowing when to pivot away from someone that's working for you and whether it's working out. I think there's just this innate feeling and understanding because you're in it so much that you realize this isn't working.
Well,
You just get it.
I think that's a good analogy.
yeah. But I also think sometimes, like if you convince yourself of something, then you can almost make it true too. Like, oh, this is going to work. Just hang out a little bit longer. I mean, you do have to.
Yeah, and
Easy,
that,
easy lefts are a lot simpler than doing a hard right. So making the hard right decision to do something the right way is always more difficult than, well, I can be complacent and just keep things easy the way that they are. Always.
that's true. But like you said, the point is, when do you? And I can't solve this. I
No.
can't tell you that. When do you say what I'm doing is not working? When 2 house payments are past due, or when
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a drop dead feeling, Dave.
Yeah.
But there's also, you can smell it coming.
Well, the problem is
Phase.
being proactive versus being reactive. If you're reacting to it and pivoting because of a reaction, it's already too late.
Yeah, because the thing you have to realize is when you pivot, the new business model probably also has ramp up because you've got to close the old model. And I'll use me as an example. When you have a lease in place for a 7,000 square foot office with, place for 18 agents to come in and sit, and then all of a sudden you say, this is not what I want to go to this business model. You just don't kill the lease. You've got time on that lease that you've got to finish out or buy out. You've got people you have to get rid of. You've got physical changes like location, like I did. I moved from a very opportune, target-rich customer walk by storefront to something that's not as needed. So you're right. Even if you're reacting to it, you're probably already too late.
Well, and that's one of the conversations we had at our business lunch yesterday about staying ahead of the next thing, being the catalyst that makes the change instead of being the tail that's getting wagged by the
Well,
change.
a good example, and Colin can back me up, we went up to United Wholesale Mortgage and listened to the owner, and we met the owner, Matt Ishbia, and he made a statement. He said, I am not doing plans for this year. I am already planning next year. He said, I've got people that are working on the plans this year that we made last year. So, especially when you're a C-level person in any company, even if it's only one person, you've got to spend some time forward thinking. What's going to happen? What could happen? My quote on my email says that it's not about weathering the storm, it's about seeing the storm in advance and navigating around it.
Yep.
So that's a whole pivot thing. If the pivot's not working and you see 5 years in advance or 3 years or even sometimes 3 months, I've got to make a change and I better start doing it now so that at the beginning of next year, I will actually be in business with the new business model.
Yeah, it's very challenging for our size as a business with really one leader. I mean, well, you know what I mean to say, like, we have all those hats on. We have to implement last year's plan now. We have to plan next year's plan. We have to.
Well, there's a really cool book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. It was written in the 80s, and it's only about that thick. I would suggest you guys go read it. It's called The E-Myth, and I think they've redone it called The E-Myth Revisited. But basically, it talks about working in your business and working on your business. And if the smaller the driving group is, like you said, one person, you're doing both. During work hours, you might be working in your business, and then from 5 to 10 o'clock at night, you're working on your business. The marketing stuff, the forward thinking, the strategy moves, all of that stuff. And that's why it does become hard for solopreneurs to actually be successful, because all three of us know this.
Yep.
You get tied up in the daily activity, and before you know it, it's 5 o'clock, and shit, I haven't done what I really wanted to do today.
Yeah, you and I often text each other. Are you sitting in your computer
Yeah.
at 9:30 p.m.? Like, yeah.
Well, Memorial Weekend, Sunday night at 10 o'clock, Colin and I were talking. Are you at the computer? Yeah, so am I. So it does require a lot. even in the cigar club that we have created a steering committee, mainly all volunteers of people that we meet, where we get together and I'm like, okay, what do you guys think? Even though the decision may be finally mine, it's good to have someone else that you can go, you know what, that's a good idea. Can you handle that?
Well, it's having data to help make your decision. You know, you collect data on what you observe,
Yeah.
but other guys have a different feedback.
Well, the other point to that
Yeah.
is, if you are the CEO or the only person, well, the only person might be kind of hard, but a lot of times getting input from trusted advisors.
Yeah.
You know, the Bible says, seek the counsel of many advisors, because people will tell Joe something different than they would tell me, simply because, hey, he's the boss. I want to tell him what he wants to hear. I don't want to make him mad. So they may tell me, oh, you're doing a good job. And then go over to Joe and go, dude, I think he's making a mistake. He didn't think about this. And then I'm all fat, dumb, and happy and don't know what's going on. But I seek the counsel of Joe, and Joe's like, hey, dude, I've heard from 3 different people. You need to think about this.
Yep.
So that's another good advantage to having multiple. And when you become the top, it is hard to actually get true feedback. One of the things that I appreciate with Joe is Joe's honest with me. Joe's a good friend, as well as someone that works in 2 of the companies. So he is not the prototypical yes man. And there are a couple in my company that all the time, yeah, that's a good idea. Dude, you're dumb as hell, because I know it's not a good idea. I just wanted to hear what you were going to say. I've done that before. But Joe will come to me and go, hey, you need to think about, so it's always better to have that help, even in that pivot time. If you're fluctuating and I come to you and go, Colin, I think this is a better idea, that might also then go, yeah, I was vacillating and you're right. Maybe we do need to pivot, or I do need to pivot.
Well, we did that in the last couple of weeks. I said, I feel like we need to do something. And
Yes.
you said, well, I feel the same way. I have an idea.
Yeah. So it's good to get input on those. And if nothing comes out of these 3, I think that would probably be one of the most important things they need to think about, is getting that trusted advisor. And maybe that needs to be number 4, is build a group of trusted advisors, whether they're in your business or not.
Yep.
And I think that's maybe the benefit of some of these B&I networks all get together because they want to network. I really would love to see a group of CEO levels or owners get together and go, okay, tell me what you're doing, and then I'll give you what I think, and then either you throw it out the door or go, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. To
Funny
help.
you say that. We met with an insurance guy yesterday, and he actually didn't want to pay to belong to a BNI because he felt like that was like forced referring. So he created his own group with 3 or 4 business owners.
Well, we've done that with a small group on Facebook. We tried to do this before, and COVID came along and kind of canceled it, and we haven't got back to it. But that was the whole intent of that small meeting group, was to not refer business, meaning not be the key aspect like BNI is. It was more of, I want to talk to somebody else that has similar thoughts. I mean,
Mental
business
referral.
business owners and business owners. It's, hey, I'm not worried about you stealing my business, because you're not going to do what I've been doing it for 20 years. But you might have an insight on what I'm missing because I'm so close.
I think it's important. I would love to have such a group as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we have it in our own little way, and with
Which
the
is a
cigar
good
club-
thing.
In the cigar club, we have it in a little different way, but it isn't focused, and it isn't consistent, and it isn't.
Yeah.
It would be almost like a special invite only, because some people are more than happy to share their experience, which is the best advice that you've ever heard, according to them.
Hey, bad advice or
It's
a
still
bad
advice.
experience is still an educator.
Yes.
When you watch a business guy go, oh, well, I spent $1,000 on Facebook ads and got 0. I mean, that is an indicator of, okay, let me see what you did. So, A, I might be able to help you. But in the back of my mind, I also know I don't want to do that. You know, I don't want to tout a product
Yeah.
that doesn't have a product market fit, you know.
Well, buying leads from Zillow is a hot topic that could go either way, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you've seen agents that are like, oh, that's bull, I'd never do it, they're terrible, this and that. And then other agents thrive on it.
Well, I will tell you, I don't think there is any one right way. I think it depends on the person, the personality. If you are a worker, if you're going to go out there, if you're going to hustle, having a tool like that will help you immensely. But having a tool like that and you still sitting on your thumb, you're going to get the same outcome that you get by doing nothing.
It goes back to point number 3.
Yep.
I know Colin has provided leads to some of his newer LOs that just completely went uncalled because they were preparing their marketing or preparing to get ready or they wanted to learn what to say. And I had this discussion with my wife today, this morning, about that. I said, you know, you can't talk to your 10th client until you talk to the first 9.
I will tell you, that was the switch I flipped when I was back in the sales world. I mean, I understand I am to an extent with real estate, but when it was the flooring world every day for 10 years, I remember finally flipping the switch and realizing you just got to talk to people.
Yeah.
You have to talk to them. You have to see what makes them tick. You have to understand so that you can alter what you're talking about depending on the person you're talking to. And you only get that experience by experience.
Yeah. That's
You
what
have to do it.
You can't talk to the 10th client until you talk to the first 9. And we had a MLO today that kind of dodged a bullet and she doesn't even know it because my plan was to literally take her to Starbucks and sit there and force her to go talk to that person in that chair.
Yeah.
And show her. I was going to do the first one and just walk over to a complete stranger and introduce myself and then make her do a couple against her will just because she keeps saying, I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready. That was my goal for the day. She managed to have car issues and dodge the bullet that she doesn't even know was coming.
Well, the fact that they don't have anything invested in the leads makes them care less about them. That's the honest part.
Well,
that is a big.
I think yes and no, but I think the people that aren't going to care aren't going to care. It doesn't matter. I mean, it isn't a I don't care because Colin got it for me. It's I don't care because I don't care.
Well, that's part of it.
I think that's the smaller part. I think new salespeople, I don't care because I'm afraid.
Well, there
It's
is
a
that
bigger
too.
portion.
But I don't think that's a caring issue. They care. They're just afraid to get started because they're afraid. There's a difference between complacency.
But I think they're
and-
afraid because they care that they don't want. A lot of salespeople initially feel that it's a personal attack against them when someone says no. And down deep in our soul, according to Maslow's hierarchy, we all want to be accepted. Mm-hmm. And if somebody says, no, I'm not interested in new flooring, it's not that Joe was rejected. It's the concept
Yep.
of flooring that was rejected. But new agents have a hard time disassociating that. I mean, there have been clients that I've actually had beers with that didn't buy from me. You know, they ended up liking me. They just weren't interested in buying a new home, or they just bought a new home. And we're like, oh, okay, we can still be friends. There's 2 or 3 in this club that are cigar guys that are friends of mine now that started out with, are you interested in buying or selling a home? No, we just bought one. Hey, oh, you smoke cigars? I smoke cigars. Now let's hang out.
Yep.
So you can actually still be friends with them. They're not.
They just don't want a widget.
Yeah, they're not. It's not a personal attack against me.
Well, it goes back to what you were saying a couple minutes ago, that you can gain knowledge from positive and negative interactions.
Oh, certainly.
And sometimes a no isn't a negative. Sometimes a no is a way for you to learn how to redevelop yourself and everything else. But when you never get out there to even get a no,
Yeah.
there is
Well,
the underlying
that
issue.
was the conversation that my wife and I were talking about with this new MLO. She's like, well, what happens when she doesn't know an answer. I'm like, well, we do, Colin does role playing, but we all know role playing's not 100% accurate. When she gets a no, like you said,
Yeah.
it is a very learning experience. You learn from pain just as well as you do learn from pleasure.
Very true.
So if she gets a no, she now understands, oh, a common question might be this. Let me think of the answer, or at least be prepared so that when the next person says no, you have and I'm going to use the word defense, which is not the right,
Rebuttal?
a rebuttal to go, oh, well, that's actually not correct because statistics show blah, 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 or whatever the answer is. And that's what I'm saying. You won't know that on number 10 until you do number 1 through 9
True.
and get rejected and do that. Now, there's a famous guy that teaches real estate, and his whole statement is this to help, like you were saying. If you make one sale on every 5 clients, easy math, and you make $5,000 on that sale, one way to look at it is all 5 of those people paid you $1,000. So when someone says no, what he is teaching is you say, okay, thank you, I just got paid $1,000. Because I can't get to that 5th person until I get to 4 no's, and then the 5th person says yes, I earn a commission, I make $5,000, and those 5 people I talked to were worth $1,000 each. So that's his strategy of teaching people. Oh, when someone says no, we'll say thank you because you just got paid.
It's a mindset,
Yeah,
and that is something that is challenging to train. And the other thought I had was that there's a difference between an objection and a rejection, and that takes some time to be able to discern which is which.
Well, and I think a lot of times in business, it's an objection and not rejection. They're not rejecting you.
yeah.
It's an objection. to
And that's
what's going
actually
on.
a better statement than what I
Yeah,
said.
and people can, and you're exactly right, people confuse the two.
And you've got to learn the objection. And we teach a class, Joe teaches one called Objection Busters, where you actually learn what 5 are the top 5 objections to using this. And like I said, that's where you get that prepared canned speech so that you go, oh no, FHA doesn't do that. Here's the actual reason.
Yep.
I had one sales manager once tell me it's actually better if you get a little rejection because it means they're thinking beyond just saying no and chipping you off.
Yeah.
They're actually considering the offer, and when you get a couple of objections, it gives you an opportunity to maybe they're fishing to see if you're an expert. Maybe
Well-
they have an actual objection that they need to understand how to. get past.
Objections continue the dialogue. Rejection stops the
Exactly.
dialogue.
Well, I can honestly tell you that I am in the process of potentially selling a business that started with a cold call that I battled him on an objection, and he overcame the objection. He was a good salesman. To the point where I said, okay, I will entertain a phone call. That phone call led to a meeting, led to an offer, which we are now working on.
I remember when you took that call.
Yeah, when I took the call,
Sitting right here.
I literally sitting in this chair,
Yeah.
this exact chair. I literally could have said no and hung up.
You called me on the right day.
And I said, you called me on the right day.
I'm ready to fight.
And he had I don't want to say slick because that would imply anything, but he had an experience that I could definitely tell it was not his first phone call.
Uh-huh.
And it's going to turn into potentially a commission for him maybe and a sale for me on a company that I wasn't even really entertaining selling until he brought up some valid points, and I'm like, yeah, that's actually true. And the fact that I objected and stayed in the phone call, he actually swayed me over to at least have a conversation with a potential buyer.
It's effective.
Yeah.
It can be effective.
I mean, it took me from not even thinking about this to now in negotiation with a buyer for one of my companies.
Yep.
Well, I've seen many an LO talking on the phone, and the client will say, "Oh, well, we just bought the house." Oh, okay, bye. You know, that's a quick surrender when it was really just an objection. That's the point I'm trying
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make. But you have to have that mindset of understanding all the opportunities that might avail
Yep.
themselves.
And that mindset doesn't come about on your first conversation.
You have to gain through experience. Which
And
is
that's
why
what
we go through the exercise of you need to talk to all these people, and we know that in the first few months it's going to be a high failure rate.
Yeah.
But the experience of going through it, and you say, okay, 24 people told me this, 10 told me this, 4 told me this.
Yeah,
Well,
and there
and
were
we've got
four common ones across the thing that if I learned the objection,
There you go.
And
Yeah.
we got to stop referring to it as a failure rate. It's a high educational value.
Opportunity.
It is, but that's what it is. You're learning because I think
a lower
they
success
think
rate.
they think they're failing. They're not failing. They're learning.
Yeah.
The only way they're failing is when they don't
well,
try.
good point. It's really an opportunity. And back to the conversation with my wife, she said, "Well, so something," and I said, "I expect her to not get a yes on the first one. If she does, that would be excellent. But when they're first starting, you expect them to not have a high success rate. A lot of educational opportunities present themselves when they're beginning."
Yep. Well, on that note, should we wind this one down for today?
Yes, I think we beat the horse.
All right. Everyone,
Peace
done.
out.
Zesta.